They say some secrets are buried for a reason. But what if the dead refuse to stay silent? What if their whispers aren't just memories, but a blueprint for a crime yet to be committed? And what if the next victim is you? This is where it grabbed me. This is where it promised me a flight I'd never forget. And I promise you the same. I'll plunge you right in, just like I was. No gentle introductions. The very first moment was deeply disturbing, something that screamed wrong. It was 2:17 a.m. The air traffic control tower was a tomb of quiet hums, just the usual late-night drone. I was on the graveyard shift, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching the dots on the screen. Routine, predictable, the kind of night where nothing ever happens. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what happened. Then a single, impossible blip appeared on our radar. Not a ghost, not a glitch. A solid, undeniable contact. My hand, halfway to my coffee cup, froze. My heart, usually a steady drum, skipped. I leaned closer to the screen, squinting. It was moving too fast, too low, too wrong. Contact? I murmured, almost to myself. Mark, my colleague, a grizzled veteran who'd seen more than his fair share of impossible nights, grunted from his console. False alarm. Probably just weather. He didn't even look up, but I knew this wasn't weather. The call sign that flashed on the screen made my blood run cold. Styx 701. The Styx 701, lost. 50 years lost. Vanished, without a trace over the Atlantic. Presumed crashed. All souls lost. It was more than just a famous case. It was a scar on my family, a gaping hole in my history. My grandfather, Arthur Vance, was on that flight. His photo, faded and creased, still tucked into my wallet. A constant reminder of a family secret, a tragedy I'd tried to bury. Now here it was, right there, on our approach path. Mark finally looked up. His eyes, usually tired but sharp, widened. The coffee cup clattered to the floor, forgotten its contents, spreading slowly across the linoleum. Impossible, he rasped, his voice a dry whisper. That plane, it's gone. 50 years, man, gone. But it wasn't. It was descending. A ghostly phantom, yet undeniably there. Its speed was erratic, then suddenly perfect. Its altitude dipped, then leveled off with eerie precision. It was playing with us. I grabbed the mic, my hand shaking so hard I almost dropped it. The plastic felt cold, slick with my sweat. Styx 701, this is Delta Tower. Identify yourself. Repeat, identify yourself. Only static. A low, guttural hiss that seemed to vibrate in my bones, crawling under my skin. It wasn't just noise, it was an active, alive static, like something trying to get through, but being violently ripped apart. Then a faint, almost imperceptible sound beneath the static, a child's lullaby. Faint, distorted, but unmistakably twinkle, twinkle, little star. My stomach clenched, bile rising in my throat. My grandfather used to sing that to me every night before bed. It was our song. How could this static from a ghost plane know that? A cold dread seeped into my chest, a physical chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. It felt like something was touching me, invisible fingers trailing down my spine. The plane, a silent specter on our screens, continued its approach, perfectly aligned, perfectly silent. No transponder signal, no communication, just that blip and the distant, impossible lullaby, now growing a fraction louder, more distinct, as if it was coming from inside the tower itself. The emergency lights started to flicker across the runway, a frantic, desperate pulse against the encroaching darkness. Outside, the night was thick and still. but I could feel a coldness seeping into the tower, a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. It felt like a grave had opened up right here, right now. This wasn't just a plane, it was an impossible ghost, a return from a grave 50 years deep. And I felt it targeting us. No, not us. Me. The horror felt personal, inescapable, right from the start. Mark was still frozen, his eyes wide and vacant. I was alone with the ghost of Flight 701. The lullaby seemed to hum in the very structure of the building, a silent scream. And I knew, with chilling certainty, that this was just the beginning. Now I'll deepen the fear just as it deepened for me. The control room, usually a place of focused calm, became a cold, echoing tomb. Every hum of equipment, every click of a keyboard seemed amplified, distorted, swallowed by the immense, oppressive silence that emanated from the Styx. That silence was heavy, suffocating, punctuated only by that faint, distorted lullaby that now seemed to play directly inside my head, a constant maddening loop. The airport itself, usually a bustling hub, felt like a vast, empty stage for something truly sinister. I could almost feel its dark secrets breathing around us. Secrets buried with the plane and its... Slowly, the curtain on my own background began to pull back, whether I wanted it to or not. I'd always dismissed my grandfather's disappearance as a tragic accident, a closed chapter I never spoke about. But a recurring nightmare, a flash of blinding light and a child's cry echoing in a vast, dark space, had haunted me since childhood. It wasn't just a nightmare. It felt like a memory, a phantom limb of my past. Now with the Styx back, those dreams felt like warnings, like pieces of a puzzle I never knew I was trying to solve. Was I being haunted by something from the plane's past, or hunted by a living shadow, connected to a crime committed long ago? I felt my isolation grow, my paranoia bloom. Mark, usually my rock, was useless, staring at the screen, muttering prayers, completely lost in his own terror. He was no help, no comfort. I was on my own. I started dropping subtle, chilling hints. The digital clock on the main console, usually perfect, kept skipping. Not just seconds, but minutes, always landing on 2:17. The exact time the Styx first appeared. It was like a cruel joke, a taunt from something playing with time itself. Whispers on the radio, too faint to be words, but they knew my name. Sometimes they even knew my thoughts. Afraid? A raspy voice seemed to hiss from the static when I thought about running. My colleagues, usually professional, were acting strangely. Sarah, usually so meticulous, kept rubbing her arm as if she was cold even though the tower was stifling. Her eyes were wide, darting like she saw things I couldn't. Another, David, who always hated lullabies, started humming the Twinkle Twinkle tune under his breath, his eyes glazed over. The Styx logo, a stylized black raven, seemed to appear everywhere, in the condensation on the windows, in the patterns of flickering lights from the runway. It was a dark, feathered omen. I saw it in the steam from my cooling coffee cup. It was a constant reminder, a symbol of dread. The tension built slowly. Normal life twisted into something profoundly off or unnatural. Our primary radar system, usually flawless, began to show impossible readings. Ghost planes, impossible altitudes, figures moving on the tarmac where no one was supposed to be. It was like a glitch in reality itself. My own reflection in the darkened windows of the tower started to show fleeting glimpses of what shouldn't be there. Faces pale and distorted, pressed against the glass, gone when I blinked. They were vague, just flashes, but I knew they were there. I knew they were watching. This wasn't just a plane, it was psychological terror. The feeling of being watched, hunted, by an unseen force connected to that phantom flight. Growing stronger, with every passing minute I felt like a rat in a maze, and the walls were closing in. I could almost hear the Styx breathing, deep, silent hum from outside. It was waiting, and I knew, with a horrifying certainty, that it was waiting for me. My isolation was complete. This was the breaking point. Reality shattered. The Styx was now directly over the runway, its landing gear down, but it wasn't moving. It just hung there, silent, enormous, a dark leviathan against the moonless sky, casting a shadow that swallowed the entire airport. The silence from the plane was deafening now, not just an absence of sound, but a heavy, pressing void that filled my ears, pushing against my eardrums. And then, the supernatural force tied to the plane and its dark history broke through violently. This wasn't a mystery anymore. It was an active, malicious presence that directly impacted me and those around me, a force that had arrived to claim what was due. The plane's exterior lights, instead of a steady glow, began to flicker in a frantic, rhythmic pattern. Not random, it was Morse code. I stared, my heart hammering against my ribs, each beat a painful thud in the silence. My eyes traced the flashes, trying to decipher the message, my mind screaming. Slowly, agonizingly, it spelled out, "We know you killed him." My blood ran cold, turning to ice in my veins. Killed who? My grandfather? No, he was on the plane. The thought barely registered through the fog of terror. Then the plane's intercom crackled to life, not with a pilot's voice, but with a chorus of distorted whispers, like 1,000 ghostly voices talking at once. They overlapped, a cacophony of agony and accusation, then coalesced into a single chilling voice, my grandfather's. "You let me die." His voice was weak, filled with pain, but undeniable. He used my full name, my childhood nickname, the one only he used. I stumbled back, knocking over my chair, the plastic skidding across the floor. "No," I gasped, the word catching in my throat. "No, I didn't." My mind began to crack. The line between real and unreal blurred to the point of breaking. I questioned my sanity, my memories, and even my identity. Had I done something? What was he talking about? Remembered a heated argument between my grandfather and my father the night before the flight. A secret my father had kept. A frantic phone call, then darkness. The horror was intensely personal, aimed at my deepest fears, at a trauma I'd buried so deep I didn't even know it existed. I saw ghostly figures in the cockpit windows, faces pressed against the glass, their eyes burning with a cold, ancient fury, reflecting the flashing Morse code. One of them, a woman, looked vaguely familiar. The control tower itself seemed to twist, the walls shifting, the metal groaning like an old ship. The air grew thick and heavy, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. It felt like the building was shrinking, trapping us. Mark, my colleague, let out a choked scream. He was pointing at his monitor, his face ashen. On his screen, the plane's internal cameras, which shouldn't even exist, showed a blurry, static-filled image of the cabin. Figures, translucent and horrifyingly real, floated in the aisles. They were moving, gesturing, their mouths open in silent screams. One of them, a child, turned slowly, its eyes, black pits, staring directly into the camera, directly at me. It held up a small, familiar teddy bear. Was this a curse? Madness? Or was I unknowingly a part of the horror, perhaps even the perpetrator of the crime? The plane began to descend slowly, deliberately, not towards the runway, but towards the tower itself. I heard the crunch of metal from the building's base. Glass cracked in the windows. There was a ticking clock now. The plane was coming, and I knew with a sickening certainty that it was coming for me, for a past I couldn't remember, but that it clearly did. The final descent had begun. The immediate story found a resolution, but it was never peaceful. The Styx didn't crash into the tower at the absolute last possible second, when its monstrous shadow swallowed us whole and the screams of twisting metal filled the air. It pulled up. It soared over us with a deafening roar that was both impossible and terrifying, a sonic boom of pure dread. Then it vanished back into the night, leaving behind nothing but the lingering scent of ozone and something metallic, like old, dried blood. Survival felt uneasy and incomplete, tainted by the horrors I witnessed, the crimes uncovered from that flight. There was no true escape. The horror had simply changed form, found a new host. The chaos that followed was overwhelming. Police sirens wailed in the distance, blue and red lights flashing across the deserted tarmac. Aviation authorities arrived baffled. No radar trace, no physical evidence of the plane's impossible return, just a faint, lingering electromagnetic distortion that quickly faded. Just a tower full of terrified, traumatized staff, and a single, chilling audio recording from my console. The full length of my grandfather's distorted voice, accusing me by name. They thought I was having a breakdown, a delusion. They didn't understand, they couldn't. I felt a deep, profound sense of isolation. I was taken in for questioning. The police, the shrinks, they all wanted answers. My story sounded like madness. Mark, shaken but lucid, only remembered the plane appearing and disappearing, but not the voices, not the Morse code, not the faces. He couldn't corroborate the full extent of my terror. He couldn't because he didn't experience it. It was just for me. They cleared me eventually, attributed it to stress and trauma. But the doubt lingered in their eyes, in my eyes. I tried to go back to my life, but it was impossible. The world looked different. The mundane became terrifying. Every shadow held a possibility. Every faint hum sounded like a jet engine. There was no true peace. And then the final, devastating twist. A revelation that shattered everything I understood about myself, the antagonist or the crime. Days later, back in my apartment, staring blankly at the wall, I remembered an old box in the attic. My grandfather's things. I dug through it, desperate for answers, for anything that could explain what happened. I found it. A faded photo album tucked away in a corner. Inside, a picture of my grandfather, taken just before his flight. He was holding me, a baby, in his arms, his smile wide. And in the background, out of focus, was a small, crudely drawn picture taped to the wall. A raven. The Styx logo. And beneath it, in a childish, uneven scrawl, "Don't go, Grandpa. Don't leave me." My own handwriting. Not a recent scribble. It was an old drawing, a distinct memory now forcing its way through the fog. And with that drawing, a memory cold and sharp clicked into place, not just of the drawing, but of the night before his flight. A heated argument between my grandfather and my father. Whispers I was too young to understand, but the emotions were clear. Anger, fear, desperation. My father was trying to stop it. My grandfather insisted he had to go for a debt, a secret. My father had grabbed the phone, screaming, "Don't get on that plane, they'll know." And then, a frantic phone call from my father later that night. To someone unknown, his voice strained. "It's done. He's gone. He left the ledger." A ledger? A crime? I felt it then, the true horror. Not just a haunting. I wasn't just a witness. I was connected. My grandfather had been involved in something dark, something tied to the plane, and I, as a child, had unknowingly cursed his departure, perhaps even played a small innocent part in whatever chain of events led to his fate, to their fate. I was now irrevocably changed, becoming something monstrous myself, carrying the plane's curse forward. My survival was a new, inescapable form of torment. I'll close with a powerful message, a final warning that stays with you long after the screen goes dark. The truth about humanity, tied to the plane's dark secret. A truth that now owns me. Some things are meant to stay lost. I learned that as the faint hum of an engine echoed in my mind forever. The greatest monsters aren't born, they're made. And sometimes they fly back after 50 years to collect their due, and sometimes they collect it from the most unlikely of places, the innocent who aren't so innocent after all. The story feels complete, but profoundly unsafe. The horror isn't truly over, it's merely changed form, found a new victim, or left an indelible mark on the world, my mind. I now live in a constant state of dread. Sleep is a luxury I can barely afford, plagued by vivid, terrifying dreams of the Styx. I see the faces of the passengers, twisted in silent screams pressed against the windows. I hear the lullaby, twinkle, twinkle. But it's no longer sweet, it's a mournful dirge, a siren song of the dead. The true horror lies in the psychological damage, the unraveling of my sanity, and the lingering sense of a world fundamentally broken by the events of that phantom flight. The phantom engine sound now follows me everywhere, a low thrumming that only I can hear. It's a constant companion, an omnipresent reminder of the impossible. The scent of old cabin air, stale and metallic, sometimes fills my lungs when I'm alone in my apartment, even with the windows open. It clings to my clothes, my skin, a macabre perfume, and sometimes in the dead of night when the city is quiet, a fleeting shadow of a wing passes over my window, perfectly silent, perfectly dark, miles from any airport. I know it's still out there, or maybe I know it's in here, inside me now, the ledger my father mentioned. I've spent every waking moment trying to find it, haunted by the whispers. Is it a list of names? A record of a crime? A key to unlock the curse? I don't know what it holds, but I know the Styx wants it, and it wants me to find it. I'm just a pawn in a decades-old game, a puppet pulled by unseen strings from beyond the grave. And sometimes I hear a new whisper on the static, not my grandfather's voice, but a child's, clear as day, right next to my ear. It asks, "Are you ready to fly?" I'm not ready, but I know I don't have a choice. The story ends, but the flight continues, and I'm on it.